name is Njoud Alanbari and I'm an architect. واليوم we're going to speak about heritage, conservation, art and archaeology. There is the presentation. أحكي بالعربي ولا بالإنجليش؟ لأن هو البرزنتيشن بالإنجليش. Mix? Okay. Where did it all begin? من وين بدأ الهاجس اللي عندي من ناحية الاركيولوجي؟ So since I was a kid, I was a nerd. I was into National Geographic, Discovery Channel, History Channel, all of these platforms. So mainly من هنا جاء inspiration. Me growing up, I was always zoned out. I was into nature. كل أحد قاعد يصور بشكل طبيعي فجأة أنا facing nature, as you can see. بعدين بدأت my career I shift. قاعد أدور لمعنى. I was searching for meaning. بديت أدرس interior architecture in my bachelor years, and I graduated. And mainly I worked in public schools. So we were creating public schools in a regional level and national museum projects. بعد كذا ما حسيت. I didn't feel it. And then I shifted my career into urban restoration. So I traveled to Italy and السلام عليكم معنا العيدروس يا دكتور يعطيك العافية. شكرا انك جيت اليوم شرفتنا. Okay, I would love to also introduce Diriyah. She's amazing. So thank you Diriyah. She's a director of culture عندنا في بورتة الدرية. So getting back to my timeline, so كنت أدور على معنى. So I've always liked الاركيولوجي والتنقيب الآثاري بس ما كنت أبغى أدرسه. So كنت قاعد أحاول أدور شيء موازي له. So in parallel. So أقدر أشتغل مع archaeologists. أقدر أروح مواقع تراثية. So هنا الانجريفنج اللي فوق هذا موجود في حايل في جبة. شفت هذا النقش في عمر مرة صغير في أيام تقريبا مراهقة. وقتها ما كان فيه اهتمام للموقع زي الآن. فمن ذاك الوقت استوعبت أن في توجه لهذه الأشياء في يوم ما. While working on my also thesis اشتغلت على دومة الجندر. So through working هناك دخلت في موضوع الاركيولوجي. So through working with archaeology, you understand in a few layers. So there's a timeline. So based on caravan trails وخطوط التجارة نستوعب أن الجزيرة العربية كانت عبارة عن extension لحضارات مختلفة. ومن هنا بديت ألاقي معنى. فتخرجت و I joined TGDA بورتة الدرية and I worked as a I'm working actually as a conservation architect الآن. One sector. So this is me doing an assessment للمباني النجدية. So I'm going to give examples on processes how to manage historical projects or areas. Yeah. So through the process, we will be following this كل presentation. So نقدر نبدأ من archaeology inspection. من الاركيولوجي inspection نقدر نحصل على timelines and narratives and findings. بعدين documentation ومنها تصوير photographic, technical drawings. As a result, we can have geometric وكل documents and papers اللي نقدر نشتغل عليها. And then we can achieve archiving, so to protect the history for the future. Then we go to the analysis part. So من analysis we can do analysis to the cartography, historical maps, also the current situation. ومن analysis also could be oral history. As we can understand, poetry is very important. وقصة المكان also شيء مرة مهم. So through oral history we can capture all these elements. Then based on these investigations, يكون في also result. So one of the results is the condition assessment. So condition assessment إن ندرس حالة المكان. Okay, is everything good? Okay, okay. So and then we reach ال conservation plan ومنها نقدر نحصر what is emergency عشان نعمل عمليات الترميم, and then we can do material study and then material production. Then another level or another layer could be الانتجريشن, وهو كيف ان احنا نعمل عملية تداخل الماضي مع الحاضر by building also narratives اللي ممكن تكون result للanalysis or ممكن تكون result للarchaeological inspection. And then based on the integration also we can نعمل عملية المتحفة. احنا ما نسميها تطوير, ما نسميها development, نسميها متحفة وهي musealization. And then as a result of all these processes, you can reach a level of responsibility. So through responsibility, you can build capacity by sharing knowledge, doing workshops and stuff. And then also you can do community engagement. So us, while protecting history or historical assets, sometimes we divide between the historical assets and these areas and the community who really exists in these areas. As an example of the historical analysis this is an archaeological excavation that was done in الطريف. It's a close area, it's a park close to الطريف. This means that the buffer zone and the stories and the history of الطريف might change. These are some of the also archaeological findings within الطريف, as you can see. Now I'm going to show you a video because archaeological sites is better to actually feel it and to visit these sites.
So now we are in the 6th century, guys.
The facts are original. You see the original position. We replaced them. The floors are the original ones. So this is the level contemporary to the building of the mosque.
Interesting.
And below the 6th century we have the Nabatean one and then the Assyrian one.
Okay.
So معناته بهذه المنطقة كأنه رحلة عبر الزمن, كأنه time traveling.
Amazing.
So خطوات محددة أنت في القرن ال16 أو في القرن السادس, خطوتين ثانيات برضو أنت تدخل حقبة ثانية.
من أهل الديرة ولا جاي من الرياض إن شاء الله؟
أنا من حايد.
أحسن ناس.
طبعا هذه بعض من الفايندينجز اللي نلاقيها في الاركيولوجيكال اكسكافيشنز. طبعا كل تثبيت and locating each layer is very important, so we have to allocate that on site. وهذا example عن هذه المرحلة.
من حايد.
الفلبين عمالة تتكلم ومش عارفها.
لا أنا فكرها تبع
يا سلام. وهم بارعين برضه
تبع الزمان.
بيتكلموا كده.
وهذا احنا نسميه ترنش اللي هو خندق.
أعطاك أبو علي.
نعم.
أبو علي صح؟
أبو علي.
أعطاك يا
طبعا
سلام.
الفخار من أكثر الأشياء اللي ممكن يعطينا indications على التايم لاين وهذه التفاصيل.
إيش نبغى؟
Okay. What is the importance of archaeology? ما هي أهمية التنقيب الآثاري؟ من archaeology, we can understand many things. We can understand the story of people who inhabited these areas. From archaeology, we can also build timelines. From archaeology, we can be even open-minded. So we understand إنه هذه areas كانت عبارة عن تداخلات لحضارات مختلفة. Another layer could be the historical map analysis اللي هي العودة للخرائط القديمة ونعمل لها تحليل. هنا نحدد منطقة الدرعية, هذا زوم إن على منطقة الدرعية في القرن ال18. Another layer also could be the territorial analysis. So we zoom out and we zoom in. So we investigate in a macro level and in a micro level. So هنا خريطة الدرعية. طبعا الدرعية موجودة هنا لأنه موقعها الجغرافي. So في المنتصف في وادي حنيفة, فهذا بالتالي أدى إلى وجود اللي هي الهندسة الدفاعية defense architecture اللي بالأسود, مبنية على الأودية السب واديز اللي هي الشعبان, احنا نسميها شعيب. So كل شعيب كان في استراتيجية في البناء. فمن هنا نفهم إنه إنسان اللي هندس المنطقة تكيف تماماً مع طبوغرافية المكان. هذه صورة aerial image للدرعية. So mainly Diriyah is based on the Wadi Hanifa and the resources. That's why people decided to inhabit this area. بعدها تكونت طريف وسمحان وكل المناطق اللي موجودة في الدرعية. هنا صورة ثانية للطريف which is a World Heritage UNESCO site. Also investigating from different levels. So we go on a 2D maps and we also investigate in a 3D aerial images. Another layer also in how to manage historical sites is to do the condition assessment and conservation plans. This was our first project within Taref. So here we benchmarked the best practice by activating the local vendors. This is another image of the same area but in an aerial image. المنطقة هذه هي اللي تم الترميم عليها. ما أعرف إذا هنا في laser. Anyways. Another layer also on how to deal with historical sites is to document, and it's very important to do the documentation. This is an example of an assessment that I did when I was a master student, and mainly we deal with buildings as if you are a doctor. So you do the assessments, and you point out the issues. Another part which is very important is working with raw materials and preparing the raw materials that are actually the same as the historical materials that was used in the same area. I will show you also here a video of كيف يتم صناعة الطوب. Yes. Yeah, I need the mic, no? Okay, I'm going to speak in English. Okay, I'm going to show you a video now how we are preparing Adobe Mudbrick, which is actually used within the conservation works. It's a combination between hay and clay, sand, and regular sand mixed all in water, kept for fermentation, and everything is done manually. So the interaction between the material and the human is very important. And to me, this is the significance of Adobe buildings and the Njoud architecture.
Throw it here. Sure. Do it like this.
Okay. Now we reach the level of the conservation works. So this is some of the sketches of how we are doing and obtaining the conservation works. Mainly we have to protect the foundation by adding stone material to protect the building from water. This is another also sketch which has to do with the shoring and the propping. So we have to stabilize these buildings. This is a situation of an example that we worked on before the conservation works and after the conservation works. Another layer could be the emergency conservation works. These are two examples of how we can secure the area. So wells is very dangerous to keep exposed. So now I'm going to tell you a story of Samhain District. So this is another district within Diriyah. The name of the district is Samhain, which is the main district that was a defense area to protect Diriyah. This is us on the on-site assessment. So many of this has to do manually, and then we have to reflect digital. So as a result of all of these assessments, we started to build the narratives. So this is the story we picked to show, which is working on a timeline to show how this area is significant. So it existed, so it has a timeline that it existed before 100 years, and then you can see the transformation of the Saudi architecture reaching the 80s so going through the 40s, 50s, 70s, and 80s. So you can find significant or some time, for example, okay. Once the train entered Riyadh, this made tamarisk ceilings change into wooden simple beams. So now we know through an evidence or an, my terminology is very, okay, never mind. But is the timeline clear? Yeah, thank you. Okay. So another layer is actually protecting the area before the development, before the demolishing. So this is an example. We do the shoring and the propping. Okay. Integration. Integration, the terms restoration and conservation philosophy went through more than 150 years of debates, starting from the 18th century. It has to do with a lot of philosophy. Shifting to another way of thinking that takes us to a more contemporary approach. You don't restore the image, but the matter of the work, taking in consideration the conservation work's authenticity. The more you can go minimal with your intervention conservation language, so you can consolidate rather than restore, repair rather than consolidate, maintain rather than repair. If you have new additions to the existing state of the building, they must stand out from not to blend into the old. So whatever is old has to look old and has to be kept old. And whatever it's additional has to appear as new and contemporary to the new generation. This way, we can stand as a moderator between the past and the future, and we respect the past by actually moving forward. Okay, what can make a correct approach for conservation and preservation? So we have to take in consideration lots of elements, and it has to do with lots of philosophy also. So we have to take in consideration the historical value, the value of age, the value of the new, and the value of use. The historical value by maintaining the original appearance of the historical monument, and talking about the value of age by slowing down the deterioration factors are considered important tools to be traced and highlighted. And the value of the new as an additional renovation or replacement that should be compatible and different than the old. And the value of use as necessary to guarantee the survival of the historical monument itself and its consistent use for the future. This is another example of integration. So we're mimicking all of the towers of the old monuments by actually adding a new tower that is clear and pointed out, and not actually mimicking exactly the same. Responsibility and integrity. So all of the previous analysis and topics, at the end of the day, creates within you these feelings of being actually responsible. So how can we do this? By building capacity, by doing the community engagement, and by focusing on the oral history. So man and the human being is very important element within all of this, let's say, mixture. Okay, building capacity by actually doing workshops. This was a workshop that happened here in the Biennale. We were teaching kids how to create mud bricks. Also, we were giving workshops to the Ministry of Culture, so sharing knowledge and exchanging knowledge is very important. These are some of the results of the workshops. Also, this is an example of how we can engage the community. This is a guy who actually owns a house in Diriyah, and he transformed his house to a museum.
تذكر شيبان الله يطول في عمرهم بقتنات اول، والله الله اكبر، كنت اول اشتغل على المحرات هذا، كنت اشتغل على كذا كذا، كنت اشتغل على السواني، الله يعيش القطعه اللي كانت معه. يعني كل قطعه متحف تشوف فيها تعيش مع قصه. الجرايد، قسم الجرايد، تدخل معها بتقرا اخبار قديمه 40 50 سنه، قصص. يعني تستمتع، بتضحك، تقرا الخبر تضحك. في قصه صارت كذا كذا، الدلال عندي انواع الصناعات، من الرسلان، انواع الصناعات، كل البغداديات، القريشيات، الدلال.
So Speaking about oral history, this is another example.
يجلبون العنب والرمان والبرتقال واليوسفي والتمور، وكانوا يجلبون القمح، وكانوا أيضا يجلبون الجريد وأشجار الأثل. كانت الدرعية مصدر تمويل قوي من مصادر التمويل القوية للرياض. كانوا يبيعون أغلب منتجاتهم في سوق الرياض، كان السوق في المقيبرة، وكانوا يبيعون أيضا الطماطم والخضار من بامية، من ورقيات. قبل السيارات كانوا ينقلونها على الجمال، على جانبي الجمل يمينا ويسار، تجده يمشي بجملين 3 4.
الله أعلم أن عام 64 نعم جاء جراد هائل سبحان الله العظيم أكل الأخضر واليابس. ثم لا إله إلا الله بعد فترة جاب الله أمطار وخير ورزق، ثم عادة الناس حتى اللي يظهر مد عيش يحصل محصول يسوي له بعل.
يعني سوق طوله يمكن حوالي 300 متر إلى 250 متر، ما يعني لا يقل ولا يكثر. رمان جاء رجال على رمان كذا وتمر وتاكل، الناس ياكلونها قبل ما يستوي. سوق الرمان هذا لأنه جاي على فوق السور يعني، وما راح فوق السور، مو لك على المزرعة للناس اللي مارين، لأنك دخلت عليها في ممرهم. هذا سوق الرمان من عند مسجد الظويهرة لين الوادي، وادي حنيفة، مقابل طلعة الخراب اللي هي الطريف الثانية
اللي وريتك تو
حقت الآثار اللي عليها الآثار. هذا سوق الرمان كنا نعرفه وعشنا فيه وكلنا منه، يعني هذا شيء يعني عاصرنا.
Okay, so now since we are in the Biennale, we can speak about how can archaeology influence art. Okay, so this is one of the examples that happened also in the Biennale. So we gave a workshop to teach kids how to create a sundial, which called Mizwala, and we can find one in a tarif. This is a Mizwala, and people, they actually don't know what is this. I'll show you a video. Is it starting? Okay. So we did a time lapse to capture that. The shadow. Okay. And through this workshop, now kids know how time was calculated in historical times. This is one of the kids tracing the shadow.
يلا اكتبي حرف رقم الاثنين شاطرة.
It was 2 p.m. Okay. Okay. Another project that can be an example of how can archaeology influence art is Diriyah Art Futures. It's a Ministry of Culture project within DGDA lands. So this is the situation of the area before, during the 1960s, and now 2021. So as you can see, lots of demolishing and lots of change. So this is the farm, and in the square is the Diriyah Futures project. So it is within a farm context. It's up the escarpment. So this is one of the project renders. And while they were doing the development, they actually found archaeology. So we went there and we did our investigations. And this is what we found. It was a city under the city. So through this project now, the project of the Diriyah Art Future is even has lots of opportunity. So it's even heavier now and can represent art from different perspectives. This is the on-site current situation of the site. So as you see, it's an escarpment, and then there is the farms and some archaeological archaeological assets, and the development. It's a bit complex, but I hope you get it, guys. This is a schematic sketch. As you can see, on top of the escarpment is the museum. Going down, there's the archaeology. And then once you go down, you can find the farms. So also within this project, there is these farms, which also could be a potential. And there's wells to be as an extension to this museum, to tell the narratives. This is an irrigation system that surrounds a well. So this is how the water flushes within this farm. And also within this farm, there is farmhouses and the mosque. This is another irrigation system. With archaeological excavations. So we're studying the soil to also understand what people used to cultivate within this area. So this could be a story that could be told in this museum and many other stories through all of the archaeological findings within the same area. A third project, as an example, we are working now in Diriyah on a public program. So within this program, we have landmark art. So through archaeology, we can build some narratives for these projects to be. So this is one of the areas that the public art will be activated within Wadi Hanifa zones. This is zone N. So some examples that we can give and deliver to the culture unit that will activate this public program is the story of walls and towers of old Diriyah. As we know now, the wall has lots of damages. So we have lots of missing parts within these assets. So an artist can come, we can give him the narrative so he can or she can replace some of these towers or some of these walls in a different way using art. This is part of our assessment. So through assessment, through technicality, and through could be boring topics, we can take them into a more, let's say, artistic approach. So even we can, through this process, we can share knowledge in a different way. This is part of what maintained and remained of the wall that is considered as a defensive wall to protect Diriyah. So an artist also can replace the missing parts, as you can see. This is one of the missing towers. Yani, you can see only the foundation of the tower, so also this could be a potential for an art project. This is another example that also an artist can get creative with, which is one of our archaeological findings, which is a tomb. There's a video. On top of an escarpment. This is a 2D view to the tomb. So also by giving them the information about these interesting topics can be a potential for interesting art pieces and landmarks. Eventually, archaeology can influence many things. Archaeology can influence thinking in layers, better understanding to humanity, adaptation, psychology, anthropology, science, architecture, art, and many, many other things. Thank you so much. Woo. Thank you. Can you raise your voice? Thank you for coming. And Allah يحيي أهل الدرعية. Okay, so you're speaking mainly about materials, right? So how Najdi architecture and the compositions of the Najdi architecture, yeah? And how they standard and maintained. So actually, it's very important to study these materials. So to invest in what we have now in the future, from science and technology, to build laboratories to analyze these elements. So for example, one of the main issues that could happen and damages Adobe buildings is termites. Why termites happen? اللي هي الأرض. Because of water. Mainly we have rain within Njoud in 3 months. هو هذا السيزون. اللي هو now we are in the last month of the season. So once we understand the activity of the termites and the durability of the material, we can protect these buildings. So what kept them now, for example, the standing buildings, we are investigating because in some areas we have a huge, tremendous amount of termites, other areas, no. So we're trying to also study these materials. And of course, location towards the winds also has to affect these materials. But more or less, it's very durable and very sustainable and easy to work with. Did I answer your question? Okay, you're welcome. خلاص.
First of all, I want to thank you for the workshop that has been done before in Biennale. It's a way to communicate with the community and the children. Now we heard that Gate of Diriyah are planning to build a factory for blocks, and they are will use it for developing Diriyah. Is it going to be built with a similar natural way that has you used in your workshop, or something different? That's it.
Shukran. Thank you for coming. Yes, the new development actually involves working with natural materials, even though there is an addition of concrete or other new materials, but they are focusing like 70% on the adaptation of the inherited knowledge in a different way. Speaking about the development, the new, but the historical areas, the archaeological areas, we are actually working in the old traditional way. Everything is touched by hand and with feet, and very slow process. So that's it.